So the roof was leaking. And the minister knew that he had to get the roof repaired, and figured last time it was about $4,000, so he budgeted about $4,000 and was able to collect $4,000 to get the roof repaired. Sent it out to be bid, and the bids came in. It was $8,000. And big storms were due in, so he knew he had to get it repaired quickly. So he knew he had talked to the congregation about the additional $4,000 he was going to need. And it was about 45 minutes before the Sunday service was going to start, and his organist called in, and she was sick. But she said, "Don't worry, I have a substitute." So just before the service was to start, the substitute organist came flying in and said, "Okay, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to play?" And the minister is just really trying to get ready. So he said, "Okay, here's the order of service," and everything is there. Except at the end of my talk, I'm going to talk about the financial situation, and you just play whatever you want at that point. So the minister gets into his talk, he does his talk, and gets to the end of the service and says, our roof is leaking, and we thought it'd be $4,000, but it's going to be $8,000 to repair the roof. So if you are willing, if you would anybody who's willing to donate $100 to repair the roof, would you just please stand so we can acknowledge you? And right then the organist started playing the Star Spangled Banner. She is now their permanent organist. Yeah, Cindy Spears sent me that one. So I want to welcome you today. I want to welcome you to your miracle. I want to welcome you to a day of courage. In your bulletin, there's actually a bookmark that you will find, and on the one side is our snowboarder saying, "Daring to live the empowered life, courage." And then on the back is an affirmation we're going to be using as we move into the service today. But it truly is about the courage to live a miraculous life. Because whether you realize it or not, you were meant to do great things. You were absolutely meant to do great things. And you may have done great things in your past, but you're meant to do great things now and on into the future. It's a time when you sometimes have to step into the unknown. You have to step beyond what is really comfortable for you. So we're starting our second week of the series, Daring to Live the Empowered Life, based on this book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly. And last week, Robin spoke to us, set sort of the foundation for us moving into this series. And then we had our circles meet after this first week. And I've gotten comments from many of you as a result of the first week of circles and the steps that you are taking to daring to live the empowered life. And some of you have gone through the book 2 or 3 times now, just because it is so transformative in your life. One of you, and to be Sunday morning correct, one of you said, that book is just really kicking my rear. And things are happening. People's lives, people are stepping out where they haven't stepped out before. So last week, Robin talked about vulnerability, and she talked about the sign language for vulnerability. And if you were here last week, she talked about it. One of the signs for vulnerability is like this. It's an opening of the heart. And if you weren't here last week, I just go online, listen to the talk, or watch the video, because it truly is foundational for everything that we're doing. Having said that, I have to be transparent. And so I got the book when I first heard that we were going to do this for Fall Faith. So I picked up the book and I went through it. And I knocked on Robin's door. And I said to Robin, Robin, I don't like the book. And she said, well, talk to me about that. So I said, well, I come from a culture where vulnerability, and this book's about vulnerability, where vulnerability is considered a weakness. And she said, Bob, open up to chapter 2, and I want you to look at chapter 2, and I want you to look at the beginning of chapter 2, found on page 33. It says, myth number 1, vulnerability is a weakness. So, I read that, and that how vulnerability is really not a weakness. It's a real strength if you really use it correctly. So, I went back to my office, and our offices are right next to each other. I went back to my office, and I really thought about what she had to say and about, my culture considering it, vulnerability to be a sign of weakness. So as I thought about it, I got up, and I went to Robin's door, and I knocked on the door, and I said, Robin, I really don't like this book. And she said, okay, let's talk about it. Why not? And I said, well, not only did my culture not really get into vulnerability, I'm male, and male don't do vulnerable. And she said, okay, I want you to open up to chapter 2 and look at page 43, and it says, myth number 2, I don't do vulnerability. So I read through myth number 2 and went back to my room. I sat down and thought about it a little bit. And about 10 minutes later, I was up and I was knocking on Robin's door. I said, Robin, I really don't like this book. I'm a male. My culture doesn't really get into vulnerability. I'm a man. And men, we don't let these emotions and we don't let all this stuff just hang out there. And she said, yeah, okay. Page 45, chapter 2, vulnerability, myth number 3, vulnerability is letting it all hang out. And, in this chapter it talks about you have to have boundaries and work with people you trust and everything. So I said, oh, okay. So I'm a culture, I'm a male, I'm a man, and we just don't let it all hang. I went back to my room. And I sat down and I was thinking about all this. And about 5 minutes later, I went up and I knocked on Robin's door, and she said, well, hi, Bob, what can I help you with? I said, well, my culture, and I'm a male, I'm a manly man. And we're tough. We do things alone. So what page do you want me to read now? And then I said, okay, what chapter do you want me to speak on? I think you ought to speak from chapter 2 is what you told me. So, Brene in her writing calls these things that I was feeling the myths of vulnerability. And so I decided, from my maleness, my manliness, my manly manness, that I would change the word. And I know the two words are not synonymous, but I thought I like the word risk a lot better than vulnerable. And, guys, we can take risk. Yeah, risk is a sign of strength, that we're willing to step out there and do those wondrous and great things that have not been done before. And, we can get people to help us as we move forward and take these risks. So I really like the concept of risk. So what does it mean to me? The whole concept of risk means I'm willing to step out there, and even if it means making a mistake. I'm willing to risk making a fool of myself, which I have done quite often. I'm willing to risk making the step and moving into the unknown that I've never experienced before. I began the service, this portion of the service was welcome to your miracle today. And at the first service, I asked, how many of you are really ready and waiting for a miracle in your life? You're really ready for that miracle. So I would ask you too. So how many of you are really ready for that miracle to unfold in your life? About half of you. Very few in the balcony. We believe you can fly up there, but yeah. So, I was thinking about this. I think we stand on the verge of greatness. I talked about that a few weeks ago, that we really stand on the verge of greatness. And I was thinking about ready and just waiting for this miracle to happen in our lives, and I realized that we could just wait forever for the miracle to happen, that there's something we have to do to move the miracle from being miracle-minded to miracle manifested. And we've got to have courage. We've got to be able to take a step. We've got to be vulnerable. We've got to risk. We've got to open our hearts. You know, last week, Robin gave us an affirmation to use all week, and the affirmation was, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I can go out and do all those things that are mine to do. I am enough. On your bookmark, on the back of your bookmark, is our affirmation for this week, and I have it on the screen behind me. I bravely open myself to life and love. I bravely open myself to life and love. And what if we put these two affirmations together? And so what if we said, you know, I am enough. I bravely open myself to life and love. I am enough. I bravely open myself to life and love. Let's affirm that together. I am enough. I bravely open myself to life and love. It takes courage. It takes absolute courage to do this. I was thinking about miracles and courage and taking the necessary steps. And I was thinking about the age of miracles. You know, the age of miracles that we read about were biblical in nature. Jesus performed a lot of miracles. Depending on which Bible scholar you listen to, Jesus performed 37 to 40 miracles during his ministry. And as you read through the miracles, you know, the miracle of healing the blind and the paralytic, the bleeding woman, the centurion's servant, Simon Peter's mother-in-law. You read in there about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. Did you know he raised 3 people from the dead, including a 12-year-old girl? Yeah. So I was looking for a common element to move into this greatness of miracles in our lives. And as I thought about it and I prayed about it, the common element came to me that there was a risk involved, that the people, the recipients of these miracles, or the family members of the recipients of these miracles had to take a step. They had to go to Jesus. Jesus was the great healer. And they had to take that step and might be ridiculed by their friends and neighbors. But they had to take that step to Jesus to experience that miracle. In unity, we look at that. We look at the Bible as symbolic of what goes on in our own lives. And when we look to Jesus, we look to the Christ, the very essence of God. We say the Christ is the essence of God within us. See, we believe every person was created in God's image and after God's likeness. We believe that every person contains the essence of God within them. Now, we don't all express it fully. We're still working on it, but it's there. And we encourage people to awaken to that essence of the Christ within them, to allow that Christ to find expression through them. So as I think about the challenges that we may be going through in our lives, we need to take the step to become aware of the Christ within us. That Christ is perfect life. It is guidance, it is wisdom, it's abundance, it's wholeness. And we just need to have the courage to trust and have faith that God is going to lead us into these miracles in our lives. It's all about taking the step. Cindy shared another piece with me. It's about the Bible, so I'll share this with you. A young boy went to his father and he said, I know what Bible means. I know what it's all about. And his father said, oh. And the son said, no, I really know what this is all about. He said, oh, well, what does the Bible mean? And the young boy said, you know, B-I-B-L-E, B-I-B-L-E, basic information before leaving Earth. I know you're going to use it today, so it's basic information before leaving Earth, yeah. So, courage to take that step, courage to do that which is ours to do. In her book, Daring Greatly, Brene Brown talks about going to her daughter, I think it's Ellen's school. And while she's there, she sees a jar of marbles on the teacher's desk. And so she asked the teacher, well, what's the deal with the marbles? And the teacher said, you know, when the kids come into class and they are just doing really, really well and everything is just humming and going great, we put marbles into the jar. Yeah. And when the kids come in and they're disorderly and things aren't going well, we take marbles out of the jar. And teacher said, when the jar gets full, we celebrate. We have a party, a celebration party. Well, her daughter was going through a crisis with trusting of friends and who to trust, and all of her friends. She felt like all of her friends were betraying her and everything. And Brene thought of the marble jar. And she said, when you're vulnerable, when you take that step, take it with someone you totally trust, totally will keep your secrets, totally support you. It's like when we set our goals, we want to share those with people who support us in achieving those goals. And Brene told her daughter to think of those friends that did that, and every friend she thought of just to put a marble in the jar. And so that when she became vulnerable, she can just say, look at all the trusted friendships that I have, all the people who are there to support me. Well, when you leave today, you're not going to get a marble. We have these florist stones. So we're going to give you a marble jar starter kit. So when you leave today, we're going to give you one of these stones. And there's a couple things that you can do with it. The first thing is when you're vulnerable. Let's take this vulnerability aspect. When you're vulnerable, when you take that step into greatness, into the unknown, put a stone in the jar. Just put a stone in the jar. When you don't, when there's something you really, really, really want to do and you don't take the step, take a stone out of the jar. But notice as the jar fills up, when it fills up all the way, celebrate in some way. Or if you give yourself a number. If you get 10 stones in the jar, celebrate in some way. Because you've really moved into an awareness of miracle-mindedness when you take those steps. So I want to talk about something unity ministers never talk about. Failure. We believe in being positive. We believe that everything works out in divine order, that all things are good and great, and that's true. But I've taken steps and I've fallen flat on my face. Any of you ever have that? Yeah. There's that old statement, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Brene takes it to a different level. She says, what's worth doing even if I fail? What's worth doing even if I fail? And that just reminded me of when I was in ministerial school and I was engaged to this wonderful woman. And that was very risky. And she broke the engagement. And I thought, my heart was broken. My heart was absolutely broken. And I was wondering about God and everything. And, I thought, was it worth the risk to love her as I loved her? And the answer that came back to me, yes, even though you failed. Now, I believe that failures are detours. They just take us on a different road to an even higher good, a serendipitous good that we couldn't even expect. And I never would have met my current wife if that relationship hadn't broken up. And, we've been together 38 years, so failure does occur. You are vulnerable. You do take the risk. You can be brave enough to open your heart. You're not always going to succeed in the way you think you will. We hear that failure is not an option. Well, yes, it is. But it leads you to something greater. And if you've ever, never mind. If you've ever had a big failure in your life, there's a spiritual way to get around it, and it comes from Jesus' teachings. So if you're comfortable doing so, we're actually going to demonstrate this spiritual teaching. So I want you to take this with you in case you ever have a failure in your life. So if you're comfortable, would you please stand? Wiggle 3 times. Okay, that's it. Be seated. Jesus talks about this. It's Matthew 10:14. You can look it up for yourself. He talks about failure, and if you're doing something, it doesn't work out, the people don't work out, things don't work out, he gives us advice. He says to us in 10:14, he says, when you depart out of that house or city, and I would say when you depart out of that situation, shake the dust off, wait a minute, shake, I got it wrong. It's shake the dust off your feet. I thought it was shake the dust off your seat. So, do it anyway, yeah. Somebody was asked what they're doing to dare greatly. He said, I have a girlfriend, does that count? So, you know, I truly believe that if you take that step, and it is the wrong step, that you'll know immediately, you can do a course correction. Life really doesn't always work the way we planned it. If it did, right now, I'd be a physicist sitting in an office somewhere wondering about the nature of the universe. That's my life's plan. And instead, I'm a minister sitting in an office somewhere wondering about the nature of the universe. So. You know? Well, I do want to leave you with a thought today. You know, this book is about daring greatly and taking the steps to greatness. And I want you to know this. You're not alone when you take those steps. That God is walking with you every single step of the way, so you're not as vulnerable as you think you are. You know, I've been using James Dillard Freeman's poetry a lot lately. And he wrote something about this. I'm not going to share the whole thing with you. But it's a very famous poem by Jim's. And it's called I Am There. So as you think about taking that step into the unknown, risking, as you think about being courageous, just remember these words. Do you need me? I am there. You cannot see me, yet I am the light you see by. You cannot hear me, yet I speak through your voice. You cannot feel me, yet I am the power at work in your hands. I am at work, though you do not understand my ways. I am at work, though you do not understand my works. I am not strange visions. I am not mysteries. Only in absolute stillness, beyond self, can you know me as I am, and then but as a feeling and a faith. Yet I am here. Yet I hear. Yet I answer. When you need me, I am there. Even if you deny me, I am there. Even when you feel most alone, I am there. Even in your fears, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. Though you may not see the good, good is there, for I am there. Because I love you, beloved, I am there. So I'd like you to do, when you leave today, you'll pick up one of these stones, and you can put it in a marble jar if you want. But something else you can do with it today is take it with you and put it in your pocket and carry it with you wherever you go for the next few weeks. And when those times come, when you need to be courageous and step into the unknown, I want you just to hold that stone. All these stones have been blessed. We blessed them all. I want you to hold that stone and just remember, I am there. Remember God's presence. Let this stone become symbolic of God's presence in your life. Remember, do you need him? Do you need God? God is there. God bless you all.